You road bikers are all the same. More concerned about your bike than you are yourself. I'm like, well, I can heal. The bike can't. Back in February, I started looking around at different kinds of bikes out there. And there's just so many. I didn't want something that was mainstream. I wanted something that was a little bit different than anybody else. A lot of specialized, a lot of Cervelos, a lot of just Treks and Cannondales out there. And look had caught my eye, something that was a little bit different, and needed to go full carbon frame. So I'm like, okay, let's go with the look. Got a good deal on it, and took the plunge. And it's a dangerous, slippery plunge to take, but I took it. So my half brother was in town over Good Friday. And he's like, he knows I was into biking. He's like, well, let's go downtown. Check. You can show me around town. I'm like, what a better way to check out downtown Vancouver than on a bike. Beautiful bike paths. And started going down False Creek and around Yaletown and up through Gastown, and went around on the bike paths around Canada Place. And it was so crowded. So many people with their little rental bikes and looking up, taking pictures up in the air, stopping in the middle, just being really annoying. I'm sitting here, I'm like, I've got a really nice bike. I gotta go. Like, I can't just go 10 kilometers an hour. And had to show my brother what I can do with this bike. And so we saw a break up ahead. Finally took him, like, I can finally get around these people. And took the corner a little too fast, a little too wide. And as I was turning right, the front wheel decided to go left, and I just fell. I crashed. And it happened, like I said, it happened so fast. But my instinct was to protect my baby, put my arm out, brace for the fall, and didn't even think about myself when I got up. And first thing I did was check my bike. Look at it, check the whole thing over, no scratches, no nothing like that. So I was like, okay, that's good. I'm like, my wrist feels a little funny. My knee feels a little bruised, but that can go away. So I'm like, I'll just keep biking. So we decided to keep on biking and did another about 20 kilometers after that. Went and had some lunch. My wrist is starting to feel a little bit tender, and I was like, it'll be fine. I checked Dr. Google, and I'm like, it's just a bad sprain. Kept on working, kept on biking every day, and 3 weeks go by, and it's still sore. And I'm feeling it like, I don't know, I think there's something going on here. I should probably get myself checked out. And of course, this is a weekend, so go to the clinic on first thing Saturday morning, and they're like, well, it might be fractured. I'm like, oh no, I can move it. I'm fine. I've been working. I can still pull the trigger on my drill. And I've been biking every day. I'm fine. They're like, no, we should get an X-ray. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And of course, they're not open on the weekend. So I went first thing Monday morning before work, the first person in line, and got the X-rays done, went to work that day, didn't think anything of it. And it's about 6:30 that night. I got a phone call, panic phone call from the nurse at the walk-in clinic. She's like, did you get our message earlier? And I looked at my phone. I'm like, I haven't got any messages. I haven't got any phone calls all day. She's like, oh yeah, doctor said that he phoned and that you got fractured. You're fractured. You need a cast tonight. I'm like, tonight? She's like, yeah, you need to go to emergency. What hospital are you close to? I was like, well, Langley. She's like, okay, I'll fax it over. I'm just on my way out the door, but I'll do this so you can go get it done. I was like, okay. I'm like, fine. I walk up to the clinic, or walk up to the emergency, and of course it's full, as it always is. And I walk up there, and she's like, what are you in for? I'm like, I need to get a cast. I got a phone call, emergency phone call, says I gotta come see you now. And nurse is like, well, what happened? I'm like, I fell on my bike. And she's like, when did this happen? I'm like, 3 weeks ago? She just like, okay. She goes, it'll be a long night. Just, if you haven't had dinner, go have some food. Let me know when you come back. Come back in a couple hours. I'm like, okay. I waited about 10:30. Went back to the hospital, and I'm like, okay, I'm back. She's like, okay, just have a seat. Still another couple hours comes by. I'm looking at the time, I'm like, it's 12:30. I thought I'd be home by now. And my name gets called. I'm like, okay, perfect. Get up, walk through the door, and sit in another waiting room. And this is 12:30 at night. I'm looking at it going, really? It's gonna be this long? And about 2:15, doctor comes up to me. He goes, you Eric? I'm like, yeah. He goes, yeah, come. Well, let's see what's going on here. He goes, as we're walking into the room, he's like, did you get the CD for your wrist? I'm like, what CD for my wrist? He goes, well, when at the clinic, you could order a CD. I'm like, I didn't know I could do that. He's like, oh, okay, well, that's fine. I can't access the files right now. So he goes, but I could read the report that the technician did. She said it's an undisplaced fracture of the ulna. I'm like, okay. He goes, but when did this happen? I was like, well, about 3 weeks ago. He's like, 3 weeks ago? I'm like, well, yeah, I read Dr. Google and I thought it was a bad sprain. He goes, you should have just come to check with us first. I'm like, I worked, I still bike every day. And he's just like, you road bikers are all the same. More concerned about your bike than you are yourself. I'm like, well, I can heal. The bike can't. And he's like, okay. He goes, well, grab my hand. And I grabbed his hand, I squeezed it, and he pushed on all my fingers. And he says, well, you got your strength. He goes, but it is fractured. But I wouldn't recommend getting a cast 3 weeks in. He goes, you're already half healed. So he's like, well, if you can get one of those splints with a plastic in it. I'm like, oh, you mean like the one I have at home? He's like, yeah, just wear that. You'll be fine. I was like, you couldn't have told me this 7 hours ago? He goes, oh, yeah, I know, we've been really busy. I was like, okay, fine. He goes, yeah. He goes, you can go see a specialist if you want. I'm like, is there any point? He goes, you probably won't go, so no. So I just left it at that, and I've been fine.